Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk TV. Lively talk about life, church, and church life. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Tenney-Britton, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Kris Tenney-Britton, and we're broadcasting from our studio in Columbia, Missouri, the heartland of America. Say good morning, Kris.
Well, good morning, and welcome to Church Talk TV.
Kris and Bill Tenney-Britton here today to talk about EIAIO, Ministry and ChatGPT. Sorry, I couldn't help it. It just kind of came out.
I know. EIAIO.
No, EIAIO. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So this is something. ChatGPT and ministry, very controversial. I mean, in and of itself, ChatGPT is very controversial, and trying to figure out how to use it in and of itself, but how and where and when and why is kind of up there in the air as well.
And let's be clear. I was with a bunch of clients the other day, and I said something about ChatGPT, and they were going, ChatGPT?
Oh, that's a good point.
They'd never heard of ChatGPT. Not everyone is up to date with what, we know artificial intelligence because there's been sci-fi movies about AI taking over the world since computers. But the reality is that ChatGPT came into the limelight really very recently, at least historically wise. It's been I think a year or so, 2 years. Maybe it's a little bit longer. Anyway, but it's been around and it's really bloomed. And now a lot of folks have heard about it, but not everyone. And not everyone knows what, where, why, how, to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have introduced, let's try this again. You introduced ChatGPT to me, and I thought, and then I just kind of let you go in one ear and out the other, but I never do that. Anyways, so okay, and then you did. Then you'll be doing your edits later on, right? There it
Just
goes.
Slice it up. No, it's good stuff. So.
Okay, so anyways, but the whole ChatGPT piece
GPT.
That's why I said GPT.
Okay.
Just can't sound like a bee.
All right. Yeah, sure.
ChatGPT. So what I wasn't able to get, when I hear that, I'm thinking of Google and whatnot. Is it a Google deal? Blah, blah. So what does chat, C-H-A-T, capital G-P-T, does that stand for something?
I'm sure it is. I'm glad you asked because I have no idea what it stands for. I know that a GPT is an interface. And there are an interface,
what does that mean?
Connect with each other.
Okay, that's great. Like Zoom's an interface.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. An interface is something that connects something with something else. And a GPT connects a user with the cloud computing. It's got a llama learning database. It's big language, big data database that's huge. It has billions and billions of documents. And it allows human beings to make a connection and get information out of that there's all sorts of logarithms and everything that says, oh, you're asking this, let me look at my database, which is huge, and provide information. And because it's such a large language model, that the reality is that when you ask the same question twice, you get a different answer. Mm-hmm. Now, when I say you get a different answer, you get the same answer, but it'll be formatted differently. It have different words, different syntax. It doesn't do the same. So, one example is images, which we're going to talk a little bit about this. Pictures, images, whatever. When you ask it and say, "I want you to create XYZ image," it will do that. And then when you ask with the exact same wording, ask it to do it again, it'll give you a completely different image. It has the same theme, but maybe different persons, if it's something with pictures of people, or different buildings, different setting, etc.
Okay, so I can hear some of you saying, but wait a minute, Bill, it's going to give me something different. Well, wasn't the first one good enough? Was it real? Why should I ask that? And I just want to assure you, and to bring back what you've said, we're looking at billions, is it?
Documents.
Of documents, pictures, photos, all this information. And so it's saying, oh, you asked me again. This one either must not have been exactly what you were looking for, or you need something more, and it's going to give you some variety. So let me ask you this. I'm going to make a statement. I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, kind of summarizing here, basically, you said there's like this huge mainframe or something like that out there, but basically it's like our World Wide Web, but instead of getting one document or like here, make this connect here, click here, it's going to give me that information.
It's going to, it has access to all that information, and it understands by looking at what you've asked it. It understands as best it can what you're asking, or it tries to make the best guess of what you're asking. And then it says, now, where do I find the information? In my database, in the cloud, or here's a key thing, you can ask it to look at YouTube. You can ask it to look at a particular website or a particular web page, and it'll gather that information, but it'll gather the answer to your question as best it can and spit it out there. And ChatGPT started strictly as a language robot, if you will, language bot, and you asked it in words, it gave you words. It didn't do images. Images came later, and that's a whole different ball of wax, because pastors, by and large, you probably ought not be in much of the image producing game, because that takes a lot of time and you've got other things to do, as fun as it is. And I gotta tell you, it's a lot of fun.
Too much fun. For me, it's like a rabbit hole. It's another one of those things that it becomes a rabbit hole for me. And y'all don't see me on Facebook very much. That's because I can get too deep into it. Same thing with ChatGPT. So I want to kind of sort of start to transition this, and you're going to do most of the talking today because you're really up on this. I'll do like kind of interview you when there's like, what the heck, come back to earth here, get out of the cloud. But I know some of you are hearing robot, artificial intelligence, and you're throwing up your hands and you're shutting down and everything. If you can possibly think about it this way, our library is over 4,000 books, and quite a few of them are very old sermon illustration books, so that if you were looking for a sermon illustration, you could pull out the book and look at it. Well, why pull out the book when, and some of that's obsolete, right? Why pull out the book when you can just do a Google search? So what we're saying is this is a bit different, or a Safari search. This is just another way. And while a lot of us didn't want to give up those sermon illustration books and go to doing Google and Safari searches, a lot of us are really hesitant to go to ChatGPT. So please hear us. This may not be for you, but we want to bring you some information. There's no way on earth we can show you how to use it. You're doing stuff.
I've got a 2-day seminar coming up later this week.
Exactly
on this exact topic, right. And I'm only going to scratch the surface.
Right. And so, if you want to find out more, you've got a link so that, you can go and see that. But just take a deep breath, open your mind, be open to possibilities, be positive, or just go away, because this episode won't be for you. So there we go. Let's talk about the ethics.
Well, before we talk about the ethics, real quick, I want to talk about just AI in general, because this really ties into ethics. Is because I've had a number of pastors say, well, I don't want to use AI because, it's the devil's toolbox or whatever. They don't understand it or don't like it or whatever. But here's the deal, folks. You're using AI every time you use Facebook, any social media, every time you use any search engine, it's using AI. It's artificial intelligence. It's taking what the prompt you said. Please find me the cheapest tickets to Chicago this week. And that right there is translating that in using artificial intelligence to create the results that you need. That's AI. It's a series of logarithms that takes that information, parses it, says this is what you're asking, and it spits out the results. That's AI. It's embedded in almost everything now. It's embedded in every smart TV. It's there. You can't get around AI. AI is at least here to stay until we have, we go back to pre-computer days, which I don't know, that may happen. But the bottom line is not happening anytime soon. So that's the one thing, is you can't get away from it unless you've disconnected from the internet and your TV and your cell phone and pretty much everything else. But ChatGPT is a different animal, as is any of the interfaces that are reaching into the AI and saying, I need more information. And there's a bunch of them. ChatGPT is one. Google has released one. Twitter has released one. Apple has released or is releasing one. Everyone wants to get in this game because it's going to change literally everything with how we manage information. So, what we're talking about today just scratches the surface of
Not even scratching.
what it looks like, or could look like in ministry.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So let's talk about, you talk about the ethics of using GPT.
Okay,
I can talk about that too.
There's some folks who are really concerned about it, and you've probably seen some news releases about ChatGPT, which is not really a subsidiary. It's its own nonprofit, but Microsoft's invested billions and billions of dollars into this. So sometimes people say, well, Microsoft owns it. They don't, but they kind of control it. But in any event, you might have seen some lawsuits brought against them because of, like, the New York Times is the most recent one I've seen. They're saying you're using our stuff without our permission, and that's true.
Without citing?
Well, they'll cite it, but the problem is that the way AI works is it is learning. It's almost a self-learning process, and so it looks at the articles, it looks at the information it has that it can get, and it assimilates that. So it's like ones and zeros, but it's billions and billions and trillions of ones and zeros, and it's learning from it. So it goes through all those articles in New York Times, which were available online, and it's like, if you
it just does the work for you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go on.
No, it's doing the work for you, right? And you have to use it intelligently. I mean, you can't.
Right. But that's not the ethics part. Is that there's the screaming that we're stealing.
Yeah.
And all ChatGPT is doing is it goes out on the internet and says what's available, and it's looked at as much as it can. It gets books, that are publicly available. They didn't pay for books, but the books that you have to pay for, they didn't access unless an author takes that book and sticks it into ChatGPT for some other purpose. And ChatGPT says, well, obviously this is public domain of sources. It's usable in terms of the information. So if you put information on there in ChatGPT in a prompt or whatever, it sees that information and it just kind of claims it as its own. And so there's some ethical problems people are having with, wait a minute, that's my information, I don't want to share it. And here's the deal, folks, if you don't want to share your information, don't put it on the web openly available, and don't put it into ChatGPT.
Right,
True reality
right.
is, I finished a book, 101 Things You Can Do to Help Grow Your Church. It's a book for lay people on things they can do, 101 things they can do to help grow their church, build some reputation for the church. And I stuck it to ChatGPT so that I could say, this is how I write. And so when you create a prompt or when you create a response, I want you to write it like I write. Now, I know that information has gone into the cloud. Now, if you went and said, I want 101 ways on ChatGPT that I can help grow my church, some of those ideas will come up. Now, some of them are just common knowledge. Invite your neighbor. Put up a poster, put on a bumper sticker, etc. That's just common knowledge. But again, the ethics is, but there's another piece of the ethics, and that is using it in your work in the church. Is it ethical to ask ChatGPT to create a Bible study for you? Is that okay? Now, ChatGPT has access to probably every version of the Bible imaginable in a variety of languages and etc. And it has access to thousands and thousands and thousands of commentaries and hundreds of thousands of websites, religious websites that have talked about these passages. And so it's gathering up all that information. So can it effectively create a Bible study? You betcha. Is it ethical to do so? For me, if you would use Google to look up and get the information, or ChatGPT to write it for you, it's about the same, and it saves you a lot of time. But there are those who are going, yeah, I don't know.
Do you think they go, I don't know, because it's not their their work that put it together?
I think there's some people really struggle with that it's doing the work for you, and there is some of that. The bottom line is I use ChatGPT every day of my life now, and I'm very creative. I'm a creative person.
Right.
That's how I thrive. Yet the reality is that ChatGPT, I don't think it produces much that I wouldn't have been able to create, but it does it in about 20 seconds. Whereas I might have spent 4 or 5 hours come up with that turn of phrase, and it spits it out. It's like, oh, I like that, and so I choose that and work with it. But not everyone's comfortable with that.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm thinking how many of us download other people's Bible studies, and so here, again,
that are publicly available.
Right, right, exactly,
It was on this church's website,
exactly.
So we say, oh, I'm going to use it, and we cite the source.
That's right, and
Right.
you may make it yours, and the same way with ChatGPT. I mean, you whatever comes down, whatever that's presented to you, you get to make it yours. You
Right.
can, move this here, move that there, say not exactly, and if there's a lot of not exactly, then you can say, hey, whatever, ChatGPT, blah, 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 right?
Rewrite
okay,
it.
so those are ethics.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to keep moving.
Yeah,
And go
we're
to,
good.
okay, so what can and, let's try this again. What can GPT not do and what shouldn't it do?
Okay, so
I'm really screwing that
what
up.
can it not do? What can't it do, and what shouldn't it do?
Okay, so we have two negatives in
Okay,
there,
right, yeah, okay. All right, so what GPT can't and what it shouldn't do. So there's some things ChatGPT can't do, and there's some things that it shouldn't do. Now, what it can't do is I discovered that it's really difficult to get ChatGPT to create a 16:9 or 16:9 ratio image. It can be done, but I've yet to figure it out. And I'm pretty good with this stuff.
Why you would want a 16:9
'Cause
whatever, I don't know.
That's the size of your video screen.
Yeah,
It's the
I see.
size of
Okay.
a PowerPoint slide.
gotcha. Okay.
It's the proportions of a television set.
Not that I
16:9.
ever work with any of that anymore. Go ahead.
Anyway, so there's a number of other things that it can't do. There's not much, but it can't do. But I really want to talk about what it shouldn't do. Bottom line is, Pastor, it's not you, and it has no business writing your sermon for you. Now, it can help you write your sermon in terms of it can help you with outlines, it can help you with research, it can help you with giving it fabulous titles, et cetera, et cetera.
Series, help you come up with series.
Help you come up with series. It can help you in all these things, but it should not be writing your sermon for you. That one of the realities is that ChatGPT, it out there and scours all sorts of information and all sorts of other religions and all sorts of other everything. And when it creates anything, it has access to that, and some of that may come in, may not come in, it may not match your theology. Now you can say, I want it to write this in a Wesleyan flavor. It knows what that is. It can, if I want to stay within Calvinism, it knows what that is, and by and large, it will do that. The problem is that you know your congregation better than ChatGPT, and even though you can create an avatar, create an example of what your congregation is like, you know your congregation and you know their needs. You have a connection with the Holy Spirit, and so you can create that. Yeah.
No, that's the big thing to me. I mean, you said it, that connection with the Holy Spirit, and remembering that our message is the message that God has given us to deliver. And we deliver that in a certain place, in time to these certain people. I found when I go out and I've got several different, when I worked in denominational ministry, that I had some messages that I realized, wow, they need to be heard in these different places, but they also had to be shaped for the people that were there in those.
Contextualized.
Right, yeah, exactly. And some of those messages weren't right for those particular, like for a particular congregation. They had other things that needed to be addressed. But I always went over the message and sat down thinking about, what am I preaching this congregation? And because of that vertical conversation there with God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus, it would be, that's not the thing for you.
Right.
So you got to be in that conversation first.
And in a lot of ways, there's a number of pastors who've gotten in a lot of trouble. Some big name pastors have gotten in a lot of trouble for plagiarizing. They took someone else's sermon and said it was theirs, or at least didn't bother to say, "Hey, I got this from Andy Stanley," or "I got this from whatever." Andy Stanley provides his sermons and says, "Use it, but please make sure you cite the source," etc. Craig Rochelle, same way. He says, "My stuff's out there. Please use it," but citing the source is appropriate. Hey, I got this from Craig, and this is what we're doing. Anyway, ChatGPT doesn't necessarily cite its sources. Now, it'll cite sources in terms of if you have a quote, and no problem. But if it's just thrown up the ideas and whatnot, it's taken from all over the place. So again, don't write your sermons with it. Now, but the question is, what about Bible studies? Isn't that the same? And the answer is, Pastor, you're the final arbiter. You're the one who looks at it in the end, and you need to look at it at the end. Whatever ChatGPT spits out for you, and if you're going to use those materials, read it. Don't just say, "Oh, well, this is good enough."
Rip and read. No.
Don't do that. Look at it, because there's this term, hallucinations. And ChatGPT somehow or sometimes has hallucinations. And what they mean by that is it just makes up stuff. It just kind of takes it out of the world and goes, whatever, and makes it up. I saw it today. And so the bottom line is, you have to read and go, no, this isn't right. And so you can correct it on your own copy, or you can have ChatGPT correct it, call it on its hallucinations. It goes, "Oh, yeah, right, I was wrong." And it will redo what you need to do. But anyway.
Kind of like fact checking.
Right. Make sure you're looking at it. All right. The last thing we want to do is talk about what ChatGPT can do and how it can save you a lot of time. And I'm just going to hit a couple of the high points, and then invite you to check out the upcoming training I'm doing on ChatGPT and AI. And there's all sorts of stuff out there. There's really a wealth of information out there. You're not in this alone. We're all learning, and we're by and large pretty much sharing. So go ahead.
But I do want to say this, okay? As you're like, you're not in this alone. We're all learning, blah blah blah. We are all learning, but I have to bring home, you've been working with this for quite a bit now, and you really are a running expert within your own right. I mean, you're not writing the manuals, but goodness knows you could. You're helping how many people? I mean, I don't know if you're at hundreds yet, but you've helped so many people with ChatGPT and doing, how to work with it and what to do with it, et cetera, et cetera. So you're always, all of us are always on learning, right? I mean, we say about everything. We're always in learning mode. All of us are. And if you're not, then go away. Anyways, yeah. Don't have time. Anyways, so I don't want you to undersell yourself, or for anybody to hear you undersell that. There's every reason they should be with you this week for that training. Right? Okay, I want to make that clear.
We learn from each other, and we're all, you go with the people who are one step ahead of you. I learn from the people who are one step ahead of me.
And he's quite a few steps ahead of all of us.
Well, not all of us, but a bunch of us.
Us minister types.
I love this stuff. Anyway, so what can you do with ChatGPT to save time so you can do your ministry more effectively? And just here's a couple things. Folks, if you're doing, let's say you have an email you need to write. Sometimes someone in the community has died, or someone in your congregation has died. This is just an example. And how do you say the right words? ChatGPT can create a wonderful email for you. And of course, you're going to take that and you're going to make it your own. But it does a great job of creating sympathy emails, or any email for that matter. Now, I don't need ChatGPT to write an email that says, "Yeah, I'll meet you at 5." But almost anything else, ChatGPT can save that time. I know that you sometimes spend hours on an email, a difficult email. You can ask ChatGPT, give it the context, tell what you want to say. It's going to take 4 or 5 minutes to write down what you want it to say. It's called a prompt. And then it'll spit it out. And then you can have, I like that, but I don't like this, and it'll rewrite that.
And rearranged, yeah.
Right, and rearrange it, and then of course, then you download it and you put it in your email and you finish it up. Another thing you can do, of course, is Bible studies. I love doing this. I use this a lot. I would go and create my sermon. So on Tuesdays, I always created my sermons, and I had my title and I did an outline. It was a pretty significant outline. I would take that to ChatGPT and I say, listen, here's a Bible passage. Here's my sermon, the guts of my sermon. I want a 10-question intense Bible study that has 5 questions on from the scripture, 4 questions from my sermon, and I said open-ended questions, and 1 question that was a call to action for the person taking the Bible study could put that into practice. It took me sometimes an hour to hour and a half for me to write those myself. It would take it 20 to 30 seconds, and I'd go through and go, yeah, I don't like this, and I'd say rewrite question 3 or whatever. But there you are. So I mean, that's another way of doing it. Finally, and I just want to wrap this up because we need to go. And that is, you can have it do a lot of your marketing for you. You know, Pastor, when you write your sermon and you have a good title, and by the way, a title is only there to market. That's the only reason for having a good title. You know, if you've created a sermon for next week, you want to let the world know. Well, actually, what you really want to know is let your community know that you're going to preach that. And you can have ChatGPT create Facebook posts, Instagram posts, scripts for a Facebook Reel, etc. In just a matter of seconds. And you could also have it create images for you for those. And up you go, and you're advertising in an effective way to your community what's going on. It's a really great way to do it.
Yeah, it's got some wow factor to what it puts out. I'm
It
just
really
like,
does.
it blows me away, the quality of ads that come out. Yeah, that's great. You know what? We are horribly out of time, I'm
All right,
afraid.
well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week. Bye-bye.